Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I, the Crafter, and I'm here today with possibly a short little video, but sort of an explanation and an answer to a comment as well from Catherine on a recent post that I did on Facebook. I sent out a bit of a teaser image of these backgrounds, which I'm currently making for a digital project. Yes, I'm doing a digital. Hopefully which will launch at the beginning of March. So I shared these images. It wasn't these exact backgrounds. It was like the first generation of me practicing with some color schemes. But these are the ones I'm actually hoping to use in the digital itself. There'll be more about that coming. So don't ask me. I'm not going to tell you. It's a secret. So anyway, this generated lots of questions, lots of likes, lots of comments, and the same recurring comments sort of came up saying, oh, I love what you can do with the gel press. I love the fact you work on the gel plate. And then Catherine actually hit the nail on the head and went, did you do those on the gel plate? Actually, Catherine, the answer was no, I didn't. I did them differently. So I'm going to put these to one side to protect them because they're for a project and I don't want to get paint on them other than the paint that's already on them. So I'm going to go through the technique. I will say from the very get-go, I learned this technique several years ago by watching videos by Diane Reevely. Diane Reevely is a British designer who works for Ranger and has now an entire range of stuff out. I mean, these are the paints. It's Dilutions by Ranger. I mean, this is her paint range anyway. We're not using these today, but you can use these. These are actually made for the technique that I'm going to share with you. Anyway, so that's where I got the idea for this. This is where I learned the basic techniques. And then after you've been inspired by something, you take it in the direction you want to take it. So I'm going to make two backgrounds to show you how they were done. And I'm going to use this paper. Now, this is the paper I'm using. It's pretty much just a little bit heavier weight than your regular copier paper. I find regular copier paper is just a bit too flimsy and it's not really white enough. I think this is classed more as a presentation paper. I buy it off the internet, but I'm sure any paper or any card would do as long as it can take wet mediums. So we're going to be doing two of them. So let's put that to one side. Now, I recommend for this using a fluid paint. As I said, Diane Reevely's paints are fluid paints, and I like to use what I would call craft paints in these little bottles. I have been known to use these in the past, the ones in the tube. These are a bit heavier bodied, so if you're going to use these, you may want just a little spritz of water on them just to soften them back a bit. It's not that you can't use them, it's just easier if it's a softer body paint. I'm also going to use baby wipes. Now, as you know, I don't usually use a lot of baby wipes, but sometimes a baby wipe is exactly the right thing to use, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to build the backgrounds. Then we're going to come in with some stenciling to show you how I took them to another level. Now, I'm going to do two different family groups. I'm going to do a cool set and a warm set. So I've got a lilac. This is just a generic bottle of pink acrylic paint where I've emptied other paints in. And I've got this, which is a craft chalk paint that I'm using up. I've probably got about this much left in it and I'm trying to use it up. So we're going to use those for the cool one first. Now I've got my ceramic tile as I normally do because for me that's better to use that as a palette than something else which is possibly plastic. I'm not against plastic, but I do try to reduce my plastic use as much as I can. Let's get that off there. So I'm just going to put a small touch of each. You only need the tiniest, well, the smallest bit of these paints. Now, I have pulled in white because sometimes when it hits the paper, if the intensity of the color is too bright for me, I can just put white over the top of it. So let's put a little bit of blue, a little bit of lilac, and this generic pink that I've got. Sort of kind of what I would call Easter colors or maybe baby colors, but cute all the same. Now, I normally work from the lightest color to the darkest color, so I can use the same baby wipe all the way through. Because if I start with the darker one, it's going to contaminate the others. So I'm just going to come in and I'm literally going to spread on the paint. Now, it doesn't matter whether you go horizontal, vertical, diagonal, whatever. It's whatever is aesthetically pleasing to you. Because you're using a thinner bodied paint, it's probably going to dry quite quickly, which is another reason I like using the softer paints. I'm going to come in and areas where I haven't put the previous colour, I come in and add the paler colour. The other colour. I do tend to be very conscious if I'm going to be adding colours that are not of the warm family or the cool family. If I'm mixing my colours up, I am very aware of crossing colours over. Like if I had a red and a green on the same page, if I put them over each other, they're going to go brown. So just be aware that, just be a little bit conscious of your colour groups as you work along. And now I'm going to take my darker colour and just come in over the top. And just put in that onto here. You can leave white patches, I tend not to. Now, I will then turn my baby wipe to a cleaner area and then just gently do circular motions over the top. And what that tends to do is it tends to blend things into each other. And then to finish it all off, I just do some wipes lengthwise. Just if I've got any heavier parts of paint, I can remove them. Now, that to me is just the start of a background. Okay, your baby wipes can be kept. You can dry them and use them for other projects. So I'm just going to clean off this, and then this baby wipe will be put to one side to dry, unless I'm doing more of these today, which I'm using this family group for, which I'm not really sure I am. So I'm going to come in now. This time I'm going to use this, which is a transparent yellow. You can see the brand there. I'm going to use this as a generic bottle of orange, and I'm going to use green. Now I have to be careful because those two together are going to come out a really weird color. So just be, as I said, be aware of what you're using and where you're using it and what you're mixing it with. So a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange, and a little bit of green. So sort of earthy colours here more than the cools, even though they do fall within that sort of colour group. To me, I mean, that's warm colour, that's a warm colour. That could sit within the warms, or it could sit within the cools. But if it's a yellowy green, it could sit within the warms as well. So coming in, going from the lightest to the darkest, start wherever you want on the page. Now I've chosen the transparent here because, as you can see, it really makes it vibrant because the white paper underneath can show through. So knowing whether your paint is transparent, semi-transparent, or opaque is useful. I can't say it's essential, but it is useful. I'm going to come in with some of the orange now, which was the brighter colour. Now with this one, I am very likely not going to blend. And the reason for that is because as soon as I put the green on this page, if I do decide to blend anything, I could be mixing the brown in with the orange, and then we end up with a very muddy scenario. So I think that's enough on there. A little bit, move it around. Then I'm just going to turn this around so I've got none of the orange, only a clean area for the green. I'm going to come in and I'm going to try and stay away from the orange, or if I am going to do it, I'm just going to flick it across the top. As I said, I'm looking for earthy sort of tones. And because yellow is one of the components of green, I'm not really going to hit problems going over the yellow, so I can take little bits of the green and almost integrate it with the yellow. I like that. That's looking really nice. Now I'm taking a little bit of a risk on there, but I think I'm okay at the moment. But as I said, I'm not going to blend over the top. So that one I think is done. I quite like that. That's nice. Very good for a fall. Let's see if I can just get a little bit of orange up in there. That looks a little bit green to me. Just gently tap that in and see where it goes. Now, I want to go back to this one now. Again, use my baby wipe just to clean this up. Now, normally, if I wasn't making a video, I would just pull out something else like maybe an artist trading card or a postcard or a tag and clean up this paint and use it on there. So, but again, that will look lovely once it's actually dried out and used. Or as I said, I may use it later on again today. I just want to clean that off because I want to come in and there are patches of this I'd like to knock back a little bit with the white. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white, not a huge amount, just need a touch of the white on my plate. I'm pulling another baby wipe. Now, I needn't have left this dry in between. I could have gone straight in and done this, but I chose to leave it. Now, there's moisture on my baby wipe because it's a wet wipe, so I can actually just wipe the white over the top. And as you can see, it blends stuff in just to knock it into the background a bit. So if you do think, oh, I don't like those edges, or it's looking a bit dark for you, or the colour's just a bit too intense, you can come in and you can take it back. The other thing I quite like about this is as the white dries, it dries slightly transparent, so you will find some colour come through it. And I've got white on the go, very on here. Just take that little bit down a bit. Because remember, this is the background, so it doesn't need to be so intense. Right, so that's the first stage done. So basically, if I was here making backgrounds, which is how I made the other backgrounds, I would be here, I'd probably spend the morning, I'd have a whole pile of papers near me, and I would just keep adding and paint, and I'd be building and building and building, because why not? I'm trying to make backgrounds. So that's how I start my backgrounds. I'm not using a gel press or a gel plate, as you can see. I've just used a wet wipe and paper. So now I'm going to move on to what goes on top. Now, I could do mark making, finding found items and putting them on paint and putting them on there. I could wait for these to completely dry. I could get my foam stamps that have got texture in them. As long as I'm using an archival ink, a permanent ink onto these surfaces, I'll be fine. One thing I would warn you though is if you stamp any ink, even though it's a permanent ink, onto a painted background that's acrylic, you need to give it more time to dry, because obviously the paper isn't going to be as absorbent because of the layer of paint. So let's move on and go to the next one. So I'm going to use a set of my own stencils. Why wouldn't I? They're there. I'm going to put a link to the stencils in the description box below. It's a set of 4 stencils called Lazy Layers, set of 4 geometrics. I designed for an American company called PM Artist Studio. They're based and distribute from Texas. So these are the 4 designs, as you can see. Now I think I want to use, yes, let's not use this. So I'm going to use these 2 today. So I'm going to use this one for the earthy one. I'm going to use this one for this. Now, bringing my tile back in again. Now, this time I'm going to be using one of these sponges on one of these applicators. I have found this is the easiest and best way to do it for me personally. I think you could probably do it with a rounded makeup sponge as well. I've not done it with anything other than these, so just know that these are a Tim Holtz or a Ranger product. There are other options out there, that's all I'm going to say. I'm also going to use, now I'm going to use a heavier bodied here. I could easily be doing this with a soft body, but I did want to show you that you can work between the different consistencies. If you're going to use a heavier bodied, use it for the sponge application instead of the main application, because you're going to find that the paint is a bit thicker and a bit heavier. Now, I'm not going to spritz that with water because basically I'm not going to spread it out. So I'm just going to take a bit on my blending sponge and I'll go circular motion just to load up my sponge. I'm then going to come in to areas and I'm just going to rub over the top just gently. As you can see, I'm catching areas of interest. I also don't need to reload my sponge after every application. I'm just coming in, let's go this way actually, just coming in using the same sponge because it's going to have quite a bit of paint on it and it's going to go quite a long way for you. Let's put some in the middle. Do I want a bit more? Yes, maybe I do. Maybe I want to elongate this area here. So it's one of these fun things. And you can also, you could come in then once this is done and do some stamping on here. You could, basically the world is your oyster, isn't it? You can do whatever you see fit, depending on the project that you're making them for. I do want a bit more there. So as you can see, I didn't go back to that that paint once. So there you go. Sort that one out. I've obviously gone double dipped over that one. So there you go. So that's how I would make that one. And I'm going to put this one by and I'm going to pick up my purple one here and I'm going to clean this off purely because, as I said, if I was working without you watching, then obviously I wouldn't have a problem. I'm also going to use the same one just to wipe over my stencil. Now, with a stencil with apertures this large, I'm not really going to worry about washing the stencil. If I've got something that's got fine apertures in it that could get blocked with the paint, then yes, I would actually put this in a bowl of water and give it a gentle wash. I just use my fingers to rub over the top. I'm not brutal with stencils, whether they're UPO, whether they're plastic, whether they're metal, whatever they're made of. If you abuse your stencils, you're going to lose them. They're going to get damaged, and then once they're damaged, it's really hard to get them back to where they're really flat and they're nice and they're crisp. So just look after your stencils. Right, that one up there. So this one now, I'm going to come in now. I'm going to use, where did I put it? I'm going to use one of the softer paints. I'm using a brown because, as I said, I'm going for more of an earthy feel with this. So that's the wrong one. Right, so I've got a clean applicator here because this has got paint on it, which I will take this sponge off and I will drop it in a bowl of water, and then once it's washed and squeezed out, I can use it again in the future, and that way I'm not wasting it. So I'm going to come in again, pick up a little bit of this, load up my sponge. I look at the bottom of my sponge, and if it's completely one color, I know it's pretty much covered. I'm doing the same again, and there is a little trick I'm going to show you with the stencil, which I love doing. Now, I'm going to keep my stencil in the same orientation to start with. So I'm doing all of these horizontally. It's up to you entirely as to what you choose to do when you work. I'm just keeping it horizontal, and there will be a reason for that in a while. Now, because I don't want it to look repeated, I'm just going to cover areas of this. Let's just bring maybe that bit in there. So I quite like that curve of that. So there you go. So that looks too much like that now. So I'm going to just come in and add a few more by here, just to make that look less like that. Okay, so now that background's finished, but the trick with this stencil is, and I really like this, if you turn this way, you can come in, and if you go over them again, some of them will turn into crosses. I really like that. It gives me another layer, although what I would say is the second pass, and this is the second pass, don't press as hard with your sponge and only do smaller areas. Don't tend to come in and do big areas. So there you go. That's that. I think I want a little bit down here, just as a bit of a border. That's another thing I like using this for. As you can see, I've just given myself a border right across there. I'll put a little bit across here as well, actually. This becomes very addictive, as you can see by me going to town on it. A little bit in the middle of there. There you go. Right, let's put that to one side, that to one side. I'm going to use my orange one here to clean this up now, because it's of the same group, which means this will begin to look very nice when it becomes, I'm just giving it a bit of a roll, it'll spread the paints out. But this will be really nice when I use this on a full piece of ephemera or journal or something. Right, obviously I've now got paint all over my little fat fingers, or big fat fingers should I say. So there you go, guys. That's how, let's give this a little bit of a wipe. Oops, don't abuse it, you will lose it. So that's how I actually created these. Now, as you can see, because it's almost a copier paper, it's going to curl. All I do is I let it dry thoroughly, and then I usually put it under a weight. And a lot of the time, when they're fully dry, I'll just put the reamer paper back on top, and it flattens everything out. You can come in with more mark making stuff. You could use foam stamps, you could stamp with your inks, you could stamp with acrylic paints, you could come in and do some freehand stuff on here like squiggles or stuff like that. Anything along those lines that you think will work on here is up to you, but that's how I created all those lovely backgrounds, which I'm going to turn into a digital project, hopefully going to launch in March. So hope you enjoyed that. So let's just come in and say goodbye to you. So as I said, it was going to be a short little video, and it is a short little video. So until next time, Ceri Crafter, that's C-E-R-I, the craft. Until next time, goodbye now.